So the project was Black Women's Primary Source in America by Kristen and
I bet.
okay, the topic was to answer this question, which was, what are you able to understand more clearly about the case of Breonna Taylor when you look through the lens of Black women's history, and how can learning this history help you work to abolish anti-Black gendered violence?
So this is the history of Black women in America. From chapter 4, it states, regardless of how Black women came to the United States or from where they transferred, the antebellum years marked a period of expansion, commodification, and freedom, a unique mix of trials and tribulations, as well as success through struggle. Also talks about how Black women such as conjoined Tins, Millie, and Christine were paraded around and mistreated for their conjointness. From chapter 5, it states that Mary recalled loud booms of cannons and the pop-pop sounds of rifles drawing louder and closer. These elements of Black women being mistreated displays the violence that Black women have been subjected to throughout history of the United States.
In some of the videos displayed in our reading materials, one by Tamika Mallory about George Floyd and the incident that happened, was that she said, "We are not responsible for the mental illness that has been inflicted upon our people by American government institutions and those people in positions of power." And then another quote by a famous person, a Black woman in history, is Angela Davis, which she said, "The person asking that question has no idea what Black people have gone through and experienced in this country," when people asked her about violence.
So a little bit about Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old African-American woman from Louisville, Kentucky. She was a medical worker in EMT in the Louisville area. And on March 13, 2020, she was murdered in her home by at least 7 police officers.
The police had been investigating 2 men who they had suspicions were selling drugs out of a home far away from Breonna Taylor's. And Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend were in bed when the officers raided her home and murdered her. The wrongful shooting sparked protests nationwide during the time of civil unrest across the country. And then after the charges against the officer involved in the case, he was recently put on trial.
So this case and the history of Black women in America, this case showcases in the most pure form how women in the United States are viewed as second-class citizens who do not have access to the same justice and liberties that white men and women receive. The fact that even during present day, nearly 2 years after the murder of Breonna Taylor, there have been no criminal charges amongst the police officers who have raided her home that day further proves the realities of Black women in America.
And then learning about the violence that Black women face is, I think that people learning about it helps to like put in perspective what Black women go through in America, and then the violence that Black women goes through needs to be stopped, and like people learning about it helps to spread awareness and the protest to stop it.
Some citations that we used, and yeah, that's it. So.